Hi guys, welcome back to the Spurred On podcast. This is a match preview to Friday night's Burnley FA Cup third round game. It's huge for Tottenham Hotspur in my opinion because an FA Cup run, a chance to win a trophy, is what we've all been begging for years actually. It's been a long time since we last won a trophy, and now we have a manager in place who I think is going to want to chase that trophy as well and want to play the football required to win these games despite what kind of teams you come up against and despite what kind of squad rotation you choose to do. So that's going to be what I'm going to talk about in today's preview. But before that, thank you so much for all your support, guys. I really appreciate it. Yesterday's Tottenham news video did incredibly well, and I've got a load of new subscribers, so thanks so much. Just a message to all of you guys, people who've subscribed from the start and who've just come on. There is now a membership and Patreon option for you. If you are subscribed to me on YouTube, thank you so much. You can also become a member of my channel, which will give you some perks. It's only $1.50 a month. That's American dollars, so just around £1 in Great British pounds sterling. And for that, you'll get some lovely perks like live shows specific for members with Q&As from me, and some little shout outs and other perks too. And then also, if you're not a YouTube subscriber, if you're listening over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, thank you so much. There is a Patreon option where you will get the same perks as well. Opportunities to be in the community with me and my other followers and subscribers who have signed up for memberships, and will give you live members only and Patreon members only shows with Q&As and the like. They will be quite regular. So £1-ish a month. Sign up to me. Help me keep this content going. I really appreciate your support. And as ever, if you are listening on the podcast, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please do come over to YouTube and press that subscribe button, and vice versa. Even if you are subscribed on YouTube, please do give me a little follow or subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It all helps. As Tesco say, every little helps. But let's get on to the football. More importantly, guys, the football. I don't know about you. Let me know in the comments. How do you feel about the FA Cup? Over the years, by many Premier League managers, it has been devalued. They play reserve teams sometimes, especially the teams in the lower reaches of the Premier League, because the money now in the Premier League is so huge that all that matters to them and their chairman is staying in the division. So they play reserve teams, they rotate, they don't really care about it. And it intrigues me as to whether Vincent Kompany for Burnley, as their manager, will do the same. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Friday night. But for Spurs, in my opinion, winning the FA Cup is pretty much everything. I know it might sound mad to you, especially if you're a bit younger, but I was alive in 1991. That was the last time we won the FA Cup. That was the last time we got to the FA Cup final, even, at Wembley. We've been in a couple of semi-finals under Maurizio Pochettino, and a bit further back, we're in some semi-finals too. And of course, the semi-finals are played at Wembley these days, which is another thing I would love to talk about at length. I think it's a disgrace. It devalues the FA Cup final itself. Back in the day, the FA Cup final was a whole day. You would watch programming on BBC or ITV from like 7:30 in the morning. It was huge. And I still think of it that way. And I want Tottenham Hotspur to think of it that way. And I've got a feeling that Big Ange is that man to drag us back to that final and give us a shot at that trophy. For those of you who are a bit young to remember, when you win the FA Cup, there is a bus parade down Tottenham High Road. They go to the town hall and show us all the trophy. We haven't done that since 1991. Let's get behind the team. Now, in terms of what I was talking about, rotation or youngsters, over the past few Premier League games, a lot of fans have been saying we want to see Ange Postecoglou blood. You're like Alfie Dorrington at centre-back, or Ashley Phillips, another centre-back, or Jamie Donnelly, who's come on for some cameo roles as a midfielder, because they've been so exciting in the Spurs unders age groups. I get that, I really do. But let's not forget the Fulham League Cup game at the beginning of the season. We went to Craven Cottage, we'd had a good start in the Premier League, and Ange rotated the squad, and we went out. And everybody was livid. And it's a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't for Ange Postecoglou, because if he doesn't rotate and we go out, they'll say you should have rotated and you've gone out and whatever. But if he does rotate and you go out, that's, I think, the worst thing. So I think he should play his full team. We are of the benefit that we don't have European football in these forthcoming months. So we will become one of the least tired teams. What I would say is, of course, we've just had the Christmas period, so there will be a temptation for Ange to say they've played a lot of games, let's give a few of them a rest. But I wouldn't. I would go strong. And as I mentioned earlier, it'll be interesting to see whether Vincent Kompany goes strong. Actually, when we played in that Fulham League Cup game, Fulham had rotated all their team as well. So it kind of turned out being a team of reserves against a team of reserves. I think Vincent Kompany's number one priority will be staying in the Premier League, so he may well rotate his team. In which case, I think we play our strongest team and we try and roll them over. And I had a few comments saying this actually yesterday as well. Play your strongest team, try and roll them over early, and then give Dorrington and Jamie Donnelly and maybe Ashley Phillips a roll if we get to 3-0 up. I know it's like best case scenario and we're hoping for it, but that I think is what we should do. We need to take this seriously. We potentially, if we get through Burnley, have one more FA Cup game before the end of January. If we could get through that as well and hopefully get maybe a bit of an easier draw. I don't think Burnley at home is that easy a draw, to be honest. Like, in the third round of the Cup, you can get non-league teams. So it's a bit unlucky to get a Premier League team. But if we were to get a better draw in the fourth round, then by February, all of our injuries and all of our players at AFCON and the Asian Cup will be back. And then we can have a real assault on the FA Cup, knowing that we've got no European football. So our legs will be completely fatigue-free. And we can have a real free hit at it. That's what I want to happen. So let's have a talk a little bit about Burnley. Currently 19th in the league. Play lovely football though. I'm very impressed with Vincent Kompany. Let's not forget he was on Levy's list to become the manager in the summer. And actually, I think it was him who kind of signed a new contract and wasn't interested in leaving Burnley. He felt he had unfinished business. They absolutely rolled over the Championship last season. And what I like about Burnley, despite all the pundits and everyone this season saying, oh, they've got to learn. They'll never stay up playing that brand of football. They've got to learn. All the stuff that people are saying about Big Ange's style as well. Vincent Kompany is stubborn and I like it. I think he feels that this is a long-term thing for him at Burnley as well. And not only is it his best way of staying in the division by playing the kind of brand of football that they've been coached to do over the last 18 months, but also if they were to drop back down, I think he feels that then their best way of coming back up is to stick to it. So fair play to him. I love that about him. I hate it when the pundits say about Ange, oh, he's got to learn, he'll never win anything playing his brand of football. I completely disagree. We've seen at Spurs, we've seen the other brands of football. We've seen the defensive stuff. We've seen the counter-attacking stuff. You don't win anything with that. So let's enjoy it. Let's play the best brand of football. And by playing this brand of football, we'll attract better players to come and play for our manager at our club. And that, once we get the squad and the first 11 at the best it possibly can be, is when we will have our best chance of winning things. So, earlier in the season, we played at Turf Moor. We won 5-2. It was a brilliant game, like basketball, and this one will be as well. What I should say about that 5-2 win, the goals were by Sonny, 3, scored a hat-trick. He's away at the Asian Cup. Romero, 1, he's injured, and James Maddison scored the other. So, basically, from our 5-2 win earlier in the season, none of those players will be available anyway. Not by rotation, just because they're not. The other people unavailable, Bissouma, Sarr, Maddison, and as I mentioned, Christian Romero still out. Doubts over Mickey van der Ven and our lovely striker Alejo Veliz up front. But I think it's a bit soon for Van der Ven. I know that people are talking about, will he do a kind of magical Bentancur-esque early recovery? It's a hamstring injury. For me, if we saw him on the bench, I'd love that. Give him a chance to have a warm-up and a warm-down and maybe even get a few minutes at the end if possible. But I'm not sure I want Mickey van der Ven to come and play in that. So with that in mind, I'd probably stick with your Emerson Royal and Ben Davis centre halves. In terms of this game, like I said, like the previous one at Turf Moor, I think it'll be open like a basketball game. If you're gamblers, go both teams to score for sure. I would even go as far as to go plus 3.5 goals in the game. I think both teams will go at it. Night game and a great atmosphere and nothing to lose. It's the cup. So neither team will have any worries about playing for a draw or anything like that. I think it'll be a really exciting game. Burnley's previous results, they've been on not a great run. They lost 3-2 to Villa. They lost 2-0 to Liverpool. They beat Fulham 2-0, which is an impressive win to be fair. They lost 2-0 to Everton, drew with Brighton, which was a great result, and they lost to Wolves. So a bit up and down for Burnley, but as is keeping with the team who are in 19th in the league. And then, one thing I wanted to talk about before I go. Tottenham's last 5 years of FA Cup defeats have been to teams that I would describe as quite Burnley-ish. And that's no shade on Burnley, but what I mean is it's not like the previous years from that 5 where we lost to Manchester United in the Cup semi-final or Chelsea in the Cup semi-final, games where you kind of are expected to lose. these FA Cup results that we've gone out to, and most of them have been in the 5th round actually, now we're only in the 3rd round, but they've been to kind of those mid-range Premier League or Championship teams. So the last 5 are Sheffield United, Middlesbrough, Everton, Norwich and Palace. And that makes this Burnley game incredibly dangerous for Tottenham Hotspur. If we go into that game with any complacency, if the crowd go to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Friday night and think it's just going to be easy, anything can happen. Because as I said, Burnley will see it as a free hit. They'll come at us, they'll play their football, and let's face it, we have none of our centre-backs available that we would normally play. So we are leaky at the back, it's fair to say. That's not to say that I don't think Royal and Davis have done pretty well, considering they're not centre-backs by trade, but it's a dangerous game. I'd love us to get a couple of early goals, make it an enjoyable Friday night, and then we can watch the rest of the cup games over the weekend, sitting back, beer in hand, loving it. Anyway, that is my match preview for the Burnley game. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Once again, guys, if you love my content, please do become a member on YouTube or a Patreon member, or both if you're feeling incredibly kind. Supporting my content is so good of you. I really appreciate it. And it's only $1.50 US or just over £1. And that's monthly. So not that much, less than the cost of a price of coffee. And it really helps support me. And you'll get some little perks too. Thank you so much, guys. If you're watching on YouTube, please do come over to the podcast as well on Spotify and Apple Podcast and vice versa. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much. Do come over to YouTube, press that subscribe button for daily content and a chance to see my face. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Anyway, thanks again, guys. Most importantly, tomorrow night, Friday, Burnley. Come on, you Spurs.